Ladies and gentlemen, sometimes life doesn't just hand you closed doors, it slams them in your face. You pray, you believe, you knock, and nothing moves. And that's where most people stop. But can I tell you something? Faith is not proven in the first knock. Faith is revealed in the persistence of the second, the third, the fourth, even when the hallway is silent. Persistent faith says, even if the answer doesn't come today, I'm still standing tomorrow. Persistent faith says, even if I don't see the miracle yet, I'm still walking toward it. Persistent faith is not about manipulating God into doing what you want. It's about anchoring yourself so deeply in His promise that no delay, no denial, no devil in hell can talk you out of it. You see, God sometimes allows resistance not to block you but to build you, because if faith was easy, everybody would have it. But persistent faith, oh, that's where the power shows up. That's the kind of faith that outlasts disappointment, outshouts doubt, and outlives fear. And I need you to hear this: just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not happening. Delay does not equal denial. God is still writing your story, and He's not finished with you yet. Faith always sounds easy on paper, doesn't it? We love the idea of praying once and watching heaven split open instantly. We like the testimony that says, I prayed and by the next morning it was done. Those stories inspire us, but let's be honest, they can also discourage us, because for most of us, faith doesn't unfold in a single knock. It's not a one-and-done moment. Faith is not microwave popcorn. It's more like a slow-cooked meal that takes time, heat, and patience. If your expectation is that God is a vending machine who instantly dispenses what you want when you press the right buttons, you will miss the deeper beauty of faith. Faith isn't proven in the instant. It's revealed in the persistence of the waiting, the pressing, and the knocking. Think about the way Jesus taught in Luke 11, when He spoke about a man knocking on his neighbor's door at midnight asking for bread. The neighbor didn't answer right away. He even told him to stop knocking. But Jesus said that because of the man's persistence, the neighbor eventually got up and gave him what he needed. Did you catch that? It wasn't because of his first knock. It wasn't even because the neighbor wanted to. It was because he refused to quit knocking. That's a picture of faith. Faith is not the echo of a single prayer you whispered once. It's the drumbeat of a heart that refuses to stop believing. Every knock says, I believe you're still good. I believe you're still working. I believe you're still able. The truth is, most people don't quit because God said no. They quit because He said not yet. Silence is the hardest sound to interpret in the kingdom of God. When heaven doesn't answer, our flesh starts writing false narratives. Maybe I prayed wrong. Maybe God doesn't care. Maybe it'll never happen. And before you know it, we stop knocking. We stop asking. But persistence is the evidence of real faith. Anybody can believe God when the miracle is immediate. It takes a different kind of trust to keep praying when the answer seems delayed. Faith that fizzles at the first silence was never faith. It was just optimism. Real faith has staying power. Some of you know what it feels like to knock and hear nothing. You've prayed for healing and the sickness still lingers. You've prayed for your marriage, but the tension hasn't eased. You've prayed for clarity, but the fog hasn't lifted. And the temptation in that moment is to assume nothing is happening. But can I suggest to you that persistence is not wasted effort? It is the very soil where breakthrough grows. Every prayer you pray is a seed in the ground. And just because you don't see sprouts yet, doesn't mean something isn't happening beneath the surface. Persistence is proof that you trust God's timing more than your own. It's saying, I may not see it now, but I believe something is shifting in the unseen. When you persist, you're not just proving your faith to God, you're strengthening it within yourself. Persistence is the workout of faith. Think about it, muscles don't grow because you lifted the weight once. They grow because you return to the gym over and over, even when you don't feel like it, even when the results aren't instant. That's how faith works. Every prayer, every knock, every tear cried in trust. Those are spiritual reps. And just like in the gym, the resistance you face doesn't weaken you, it strengthens you. Faith proven in persistence is faith that can weather storms, endure silence, and still declare, I believe my God is faithful. One of the greatest lies the enemy whispers into our hearts is this: if it was really God's will, it wouldn't be this hard. Have you ever heard that one? The moment resistance shows up, the moment the door doesn't swing wide open, we start assuming God must not want it for us. We confuse difficulty with denial. But let me flip that for you. Resistance doesn't mean rejection. Sometimes resistance is proof you're pushing in the right direction. Sometimes resistance is the very tool God uses to prepare you for the weight of what you've been praying for. Because if it came without opposition, you wouldn't be strong enough to carry it when it arrives. Think about David before he faced Goliath. The Bible says he had to fight lions and bears while watching over sheep. That wasn't punishment. That wasn't rejection. That was preparation. God was training his hands for battle in the wilderness long before he placed him on the battlefield. The resistance of the lion, the resistance of the bear, was building the courage, the skill, and the confidence that would one day allow him to face a giant no one else wanted to fight. Imagine if David had interpreted those lions and bears as God rejecting him. He could have walked away, but instead he recognized resistance as an opportunity to grow, and when the giant showed up, he was ready. Here's the problem with us. We want giant-sized blessings without lion-sized battles. We want to slay Goliath without ever having to wrestle a bear. But God knows that if He gave you the platform before you had the perseverance, it would crush you instead of lift you. That's why resistance is not rejection. That's why the doors don't open easily. That's why the dream takes longer than you thought. Every not yet, every wait a little longer, every this is harder than I planned, all of it is God shaping your capacity. Resistance builds resilience, and resilience is what keeps you standing when the weight of blessing feels heavier than the battle ever did. If you've ever been in a gym, you know how this works. Muscles don't grow without resistance. The very thing that makes you strain, the very thing that makes you sweat, is the thing that develops your strength. The trainer doesn't hand you weights to punish you. He hands them to you to prepare you. In the same way, God places weights in your life. Weights of responsibility, weights of waiting, weights of unanswered questions, not to reject you but to prepare you for the weight of His glory. What feels like pressure today is training you for influence tomorrow. What feels like opposition today is building endurance for the opportunity God is setting before you. So the next time you hit resistance, don't assume God has abandoned you. Don't assume the dream is dead. Resistance is not a dead end, it's a training ground. God is saying, I'm building you for what I've already planned for you. You may not like the process, but you will thank Him for it when you see the purpose, that resistance you're facing right now. It's not rejection, it's preparation. Preparation for the Goliath you don't even know is waiting. Preparation for the doors you don't even realize are about to open. Preparation for the season that's on its way. If there's one thing that tests our faith more than anything else, it's delay. We live in a culture of instant downloads, 2-day shipping, and fast food at the touch of a button. We've been conditioned to believe that waiting means something went wrong. But God's kingdom doesn't work on human timelines. He's not bound by our deadlines. And just because it hasn't happened yet doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Delay is not denial, it's divine timing. When God seems to move slow, it's not because He's forgotten you. It's because He's forming something in you. He's aligning people, circumstances, and seasons in ways you can't see. Delay isn't punishment, it's positioning. Take Lazarus, for example. When Mary and Martha sent word to Jesus that their brother was sick, they expected him to come right away. But what did Jesus do? He stayed 2 more days where he was. By the time he showed up, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. From the sisters' perspective, the delay was devastating. They even said to Jesus, "If you had been here, our brother wouldn't have died." But what looked like denial was actually a setup for a greater demonstration of God's glory. If Jesus had come when they wanted him to, Lazarus would have been healed. But because he came on his timing, Lazarus was resurrected. The delay wasn't a denial, it was an upgrade to the miracle. And maybe that's what God is doing in your life right now. You've been praying for the job, for the breakthrough, for the healing, and it feels like heaven is dragging its feet. You thought it would take weeks, but it's been years. You thought it would be easy, but it's been hard. And the enemy has tried to convince you that God has said no, when really He's just saying not yet. What feels like wasted time is actually preparation time. God isn't just working on the blessing, He's working on you, so that when the blessing arrives, you're ready to handle it. Delay doesn't mean God's ignoring your prayers. It means He's orchestrating something bigger than your plans. The danger of delay is that it tempts us to downgrade our faith. When it doesn't happen on our timeline, we stop asking boldly, we stop knocking persistently, we start praying safe, small prayers to protect ourselves from disappointment. But listen to me, your delay is not evidence that God is absent, it's evidence that God is still at work. Sometimes He delays because the promise is bigger than the package you were expecting. Sometimes He delays because He's writing a story that's not just for your glory, but for His. If He gave it to you too soon, you might settle for something smaller than what He's planned. But if you'll trust Him through the delay, He'll deliver something so much greater than what you imagined. Here's the question you need to ask yourself. What will I do in the delay? Will I give up? Will I shrink back? Or will I stand in faith and believe that God's timing is better than mine? The delay is where character is forged. The delay is where faith is purified. The delay is where you learn to depend, not on what you see, but on who you know. It's in the delay that you declare, even if it hasn't happened yet, I believe it will. Even if I don't see it now, I know it's on the way. Because when you understand that delay is not denial, you stop resenting the wait and start respecting what God is building in the wait. Faith is not fragile. Real faith doesn't shatter the moment life hits hard. Real faith bends, but doesn't break. It's not faith if it only works when the sun is shining and the prayers are answered in 24 hours. True faith, the kind that moves mountains, outlasts seasons of disappointment, outshouts the voice of fear, and outruns the whispers of doubt. You don't measure the strength of your faith by how loud you shout on Sunday morning. You measure it by how steady you stand on Wednesday night when the miracle still hasn't come. Persistent faith is not about what you feel in the moment. It's about the decision to keep standing, keep walking, keep believing, even when every emotion in your body screams, give up. Let's talk about doubt. Every person in Scripture who did great things for God had to wrestle with it. Abraham doubted when he looked at his old body and Sarah's barren womb. Gideon doubted when God called him a mighty warrior while he was hiding in a winepress. Even John the Baptist, the man who baptized Jesus, sent messengers to ask, "Are you really the one?" Doubt will always knock at the door, but persistent faith doesn't let doubt move in. It doesn't mean you never feel doubt, it means you don't surrender to it. Doubt is a visitor. Faith is the resident. Persistent faith says, I may not see how, but I still believe He will. And then there's fear. Fear is loud. Fear tells you you're not enough. Fear tells you you're going to fail. Fear paints the worst-case scenario in vivid color. But here's the thing. Fear and faith both ask you to believe in something you can't see. Fear asks you to believe in defeat that hasn't happened yet. Faith asks you to believe in victory you haven't seen yet. Persistent faith chooses to believe in the promise over the panic. It says, "Yes, I hear fear's voice, but I refuse to let it make my decisions." You can feel afraid and still act in faith. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the persistence of faith in the face of fear. And then there's disappointment. Disappointment cuts deeper than doubt or fear because it's not theoretical, it's personal. It's the prayer you prayed that wasn't answered how you hoped. It's the relationship that ended when you believed it would last. It's the opportunity that slipped through your fingers after you thought God opened the door. Disappointment has a way of trying to rewire your faith, to make you cautious, to make you believe that expecting less will protect you from pain. But persistent faith refuses to shrink back. Persistent faith learns to process pain without letting pain define the promise. It's not denial, it's determination. It's looking disappointment in the eye and saying, "You may have slowed me down, but you will not stop me." Persistent faith doesn't pretend there's no doubt, no fear, no disappointment. It just refuses to quit in the face of them. It stands its ground, it digs in its heels. It says, "I will not let my faith expire just because my feelings are tired." Persistent faith is stubborn, it's gritty, it's that inner fire that keeps burning when everything outside says go cold. And maybe that's exactly what God is calling you to today, to a faith that doesn't just survive the storm but outlasts it, a faith that doesn't collapse when the waiting stretches longer than expected, a faith that keeps saying yes to God even while carrying the scars of disappointment, because persistent faith is not pretty faith, it's not polished, it's not perfect, but it is powerful. Victory is not found at the starting line. Anybody can start a race. Anybody can run when the crowd is cheering, when the energy is high, when the adrenaline is flowing. But victory isn't awarded to the starter, it's awarded to the one who endures. The medal isn't given to the one who sprinted out fast but burned out halfway. It's given to the one who kept going even when the legs were heavy, the lungs were on fire, and the finish line felt a million miles away. Endurance is the bridge between your faith and your victory. Without endurance, you'll quit too soon. But with endurance, you discover that the very place you felt like giving up was the place you were closest to breakthrough. The writer of Hebrews said, "Let us run with endurance the race marked out for us." That word endurance means more than just waiting. It means staying under the weight, continuing even when you want to drop it. Think about it. Jesus himself endured the cross. He didn't escape it. He didn't shortcut it. He didn't quit halfway up the hill of Calvary. He endured. And because he endured, you and I have victory today. If the Son of God had to endure, why do we think we can skip the process? Why do we think our race should be smooth, our path easy, our journey short? Endurance isn't optional, it's essential. Endurance is the proof of faith. Let's be real, endurance doesn't feel glamorous. Nobody is clapping when you're still holding on after 10 prayers with no answer. Nobody posts a highlight reel of the nights you cry yourself to sleep and wake up the next morning still believing. Endurance is the part of faith that happens in private. It's the part nobody sees but God. It's when you show up to church even though your heart is heavy. It's when you tithe even though your finances look impossible. It's when you forgive again even though it hurts to let go. That's endurance. And while it may not feel like progress in the moment, every step you take in endurance is moving you closer to the victory God has already written into your story. Some of you are standing in the middle of your race right now. You feel like quitting. You've told yourself, "I can't keep doing this. I've prayed too long. I've waited too long. I've tried too hard. But can I tell you something? The place where you feel the heaviest resistance is often the place closest to the release. Ask any runner. The hardest part of the race is right before the finish line. That's when the body screams, stop. But that's also when the victory is within reach. Spiritually, it's the same. The enemy tries hardest to discourage you right before your breakthrough. The fatigue you feel is not a sign to quit. It's a sign you're almost there. Victory isn't for the fastest, the flashiest, or the most talented. It's for the ones who endure. It's for the ones who refuse to let go of the promise even when time drags on. It's for the ones who keep pressing when everything says it's over. Endurance doesn't always look exciting, but it always ends in triumph. Because victory is not a question of if, it's a question of whether you'll endure until the door opens, until the healing manifests, until the promise comes to pass. Victory is waiting on the other side of endurance, and when you refuse to quit, you'll discover that the same God who called you to start is the same God who will empower you to finish. So here's what I came to tell you. Don't stop knocking. Don't stop pressing. Don't stop believing. Because the God who promised is faithful, and the faith that persists will always see His power revealed. Yes, resistance will come, but it's not rejection, it's preparation. Yes, there will be delays, but they are not denials, they are divine setups. Yes, doubt will whisper, fear will scream, disappointment will sting, but persistent faith can outlast them all. And yes, the race will be long, the path will be steep, but victory always belongs to those who endure. I don't know what door you've been standing in front of. I don't know what prayer you've been repeating. I don't know what dream you've been tempted to bury. But I do know this: the power of persistent faith will carry you farther than you thought you could go. It will keep you standing when you feel like falling. It will push you forward when everything says turn back. It will hold you steady until the promise becomes reality. So if you're tired, keep standing. If you're waiting, keep knocking. If you're doubting, keep believing. If you're discouraged, keep enduring. Because the same God who brought you this far is the God who will finish what He started in you. Ladies and gentlemen, the power of persistent faith is not just about what you're believing for, it's about who you're becoming in the process. And when the door finally swings open, when the miracle finally manifests, when the victory finally arrives, you'll look back and realize it wasn't just the outcome that mattered. It was the persistence that shaped you, the endurance that built you, and the faith that revealed God's glory through you.